and the FBI used improper tactics in extraditing Peltier and otherwise in investigating and trying Peltier's case.
Hello, my name is Stanley Heller. Welcome to The Struggle. The Struggle is shown on over 30 cable stations from Vermont to New York City, on the internet at thestruggle.org, our YouTube channel, Struggle Video Media. Today, Leonard Peltier, Syria, the Lorraine Motel in Memphis, New Haven solidarity with Standing Rock, and some magical lights. We start with Leonard Peltier, an American Indian leader imprisoned for 40 years. With Trump coming in, activists think the next couple of weeks are the last chance for a pardon for Leonard Peltier. Obama has never listened to the pleas for justice in his case, but as Amnesty International explains, we have to try one last time.
I am everyone who ever died without a voice, or a prayer, or a hope, or a chance.
Leonard Peltier is a Native American activist who's been in prison for 40 years, serving 2 consecutive life terms for a crime he maintains he did not commit. In 1977, he was convicted of killing 2 FBI agents, Ronald Williams and Jack Kohler, during a shootout on the Pine Ridge Reservation in South Dakota. Peltier was a member of the American Indian Movement, AIM, founded in 1968 during the Civil Rights Movement to advocate for the rights of Native Americans. The murders occurred at a time when AIM supporters and residents of Pine Ridge were being intimidated and killed, allegedly by paramilitaries connected to the government. A climate of fear and terror prevailed. After 2 AIM members were acquitted of the killings, witnesses were coerced by the FBI into saying they saw Peltier shoot the agents. Ballistics evidence that could have aided Leonard's defense was hidden from his lawyers.
The only thing I'm guilty of is struggling for my people. I didn't kill those agents.
It was not a fair trial. The conclusion reached by federal appeals judge Gerald Heaney, who stated, "The prosecution withheld evidence favorable to the defendant, and the FBI used improper tactics in extraditing Peltier and otherwise in investigating and trying Peltier's case."
I'll be an old man when I get out. If I get out.
Leonard Peltier has spent 40 years in federal penitentiaries, often in solitary confinement. He's now 71 years old and in rapidly declining health. There are concerns that he's not receiving adequate medical treatment and his condition could be fatal.
They're giving him the death penalty by leaving him in that type of an environment. The man needs medical treatment. He needs to have access to medical treatment. If they're not going to give medical treatment to him, they need to release him as soon as possible.
Amnesty International is calling on President Obama to grant Leonard Peltier clemency before it's too late. President Obama has a chance to rectify a case that has troubled many people for decades. It's an appeal supported by 7 of the president's fellow Nobel Peace Prize laureates, including the late Nelson Mandela, and dozens of religious and human rights leaders from the U.S. and around the world. Please join them and write President Obama. It's time to release Leonard Peltier.
Now, the news about Syria after free Aleppo has been crushed. This is a protest for Syria in Liverpool, England.
Help! Help! Don't you cry!
Help! Help! Don't you cry!
We will never let you die!
We will never let you die!
1, 2, 3, 4!
Stop the war! Stop the hate!
1, 2, 3, 4!
1, 2, 3, 4!
Syrian blood, no more!
Syrian blood, no more!
5, 6,
and some photos from a protest in New York City. A note about this flag. King Barrelbomb and the Assad dynasty wave a two-star flag. The revolution waves this flag with 3 stars. It harkens back to the years before Assad. The Islamic forces, like ISIS and Al-Qaeda and others, are enemies of the revolution. They don't wave the 3-star flag. They wave black and white flags. Here's a fine but grim cartoon by Latouf of Assad smashing the word Aleppo. On the Promoting Enduring Peace website, an open letter, an appeal for Syria for airdrops of food and supplies. I'm going to read off the short statement and then just the names of the signers. Syria is undergoing the worst warfare on the planet. We must not stand by and watch the triumph of a dictatorship whose very heart is torture and war crimes. We believe the key to eventual peace is to stop the sieges of over 1 million Syrians. We call for these measures. Airdrop food and supplies to all besieged areas. If the UN won't do it, the US should lead the way. Call for all forces to allow civilians to leave besieged areas if they wish, without fear of detention or conscription, or to remain in their homes. Encourage local ceasefires without using these to create more forced displacement. Release all political prisoners and account for all those who died in detention. Signed by Dr. Alice Rothschild, Ali Al-Ahmed, Khalil Bendib, the Reverend David W. Good, Adam Hochschild, Munji Dawadi, Reza Mansour, Bishop John Selders, Bill Fletcher Jr., Rav Shmuley Yanklowitz, Philip Weiss, Peter Tatchell, David Turpin Jr., Dr. Abraham Weitzfeld, Dr. Colleen Keyes, Humayun Kabir, Chief Many Hearts, Dr. Lynn Malerba, Diana Nelson. Go to pepeace.org to see this statement again and the line of identification of these signers. A protest for Aleppo in Standing Rock, South Dakota. Video was shot from a drone.
Standing Rock stands with Aleppo here on Facebook Hill in solidarity with love and prayers.
And a protest in Hartford, Connecticut.
Free, free Syria! Free, free Syria! Russia, Russia, don't you see? Russia, Russia, don't you see? Syrian people will be free! Syria!
Again, this is the situation. I don't know if everyone has seen the severity. If you're not online, you're not following social media, you haven't seen the severity, you haven't heard about the things that are being said. There are parents asking Islamic scholars if it's permissible to kill their daughters, to kill their own blood and souls, to save them from the brutality of Assad's regime and everyone else who's around.
Mothers wiping blood instead of tears from infants, I crying, why? Houses raided while women annihilated, trembling in fear of being violated. Bodies shaking as if they were dancing, prancing due to the chemical dispersing in the air. Perpetrators of swords wanting their names roared, throats sliced off and calling on to the Lord. Dry throats shouting, Isma' ya Bashar, لإننا نركع إلا لله. Millions displaced with no place of space. Man-made borders closed off and shut off. Such a disgrace to the Muslim race.
He built his armies for what? Not for any other purpose, but to control his own people, to keep them under lock. It's very, very simple. I don't understand how people make it so complicated. It's sickening. People rose up 2011 for what? For what? Kids wrote on the walls, "We the people want to topple the government." That's it. That's how it started. There's nothing happening in Syria, but there was revolutions happening in Egypt, in Tunis. That's how they got that. They heard it on TV. That's how it all started. It came up. Then they went out and protested it. They didn't say, "Oh, we want to topple the government," this and that. All they asked is for justice for the kids. And what did the government do? They shot them up. They killed them. They besieged them. Then other cities rose. And that's how solidarity moved, because we knew at the beginning the peaceful protests would solve nothing. We did it to show the world we were serious about it. In the beginning, within the 2011, in the streets, went on a peaceful protest. Who come at us? Busloads of Shabiha, and they're not even army or police officers. They get the poorest of the poor, of the uneducated, pay them a few bucks and go beat your fellow man. That's how it happens. We should be being in the streets. And they say, "Why don't you pick up a gun, pick up a rock, hit these soldiers?" No, we want the world to see us dying in the streets. We want people to see that we're serious about freedom. When you see the people from Aleppo, they're all fleeing. They're all fleeing to the parts under rebel territory. They're not going to the regime areas. Why is that? They're in prison. Their women are being raped. When people talk about women, they're not even women. They rape children and girls, little girls, and they rape little boys. It's a sick, twisted regime. There's no words to describe their evilness. They have inner hatred for people. Like, they worship the guy. They worship the guy. People don't believe it. The regime people, the innards, they worship. And people have to put an end to this.
And in Syria, it is painful to see some of our friends who we marched together and we spoke about the revolution and dictatorship. It pains me to see them put out statements celebrating what happened in Halab 2-3 days ago. It is very painful. But these are people who marched with us. What happened to them? Where is their moral compass? We need to talk to each other. We need to come to the table and say, what is it exactly? Where is the minimum that we could agree on? We definitely do not want to see any more death and destruction. We definitely do not want to see any more intervention in Syria, because that is very obvious that it's making things worse. And if we want some kind of help to help the Syrian people, what kind of help? Let's use our wisdom and let's push for a solution that stops this killing, stops this victimization, stops this death and rape that is, we are sick of it.
Free, free Syria! Free, free Syria!
We're gonna have to get ideas here.
Save the children!
Save the children!
Save the children!
Save Aleppo!
Save Aleppo!
If you follow our program, you recall that this autumn I was part of an anti-racism motor tour called the Wheels of Justice. We went to a number of areas in the South. It was sponsored by the Tree of Life Project of the First Congregational Church of Old Lyme. We went as far west as Memphis, Tennessee, right on the Mississippi River. Our main purpose in Memphis was to visit the Lorraine Motel, where Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. breathed his last breath. On that morning, before we walked to the motel, the leader of the tour, Reverend Stephen Youngheight, talked about Martin Luther King's arrest in Birmingham, Alabama, and his extraordinary letter from the Birmingham jail.
We're going to go to the Lorraine Motel in just a few minutes, and I wanted to use that to connect us back to the Birmingham jail, because I'm sorry we didn't have time to linger there or stop there, but it's a very important moment. Did all of you get a chance to read this aloud in the letter aloud in the cars? You read part of it? Okay. So I want to draw out just a couple of different things that I think are really, really important for all kinds of justice struggles. So one of them is this. King says, "You may well ask, why direct action? Why sit-ins, marches, and so forth? Isn't negotiation a better path?" He says, "You are exactly right in your call for negotiation. Indeed, this is the purpose of direct action. Nonviolent direct action seeks to create such a crisis and establish such creative tension that a community that has consistently refused to negotiate is forced to confront the issue. It seeks so to dramatize the issue that it can no longer be ignored." He says, "I confess that I am not afraid of the word tension. I have earnestly worked and preached against violent tension, but there is a type of constructive, nonviolent tension that is necessary for growth." And then he goes on to talk about Socrates and the ways in which Socrates brought creative, nonviolent tension to Athens. And I think we need to remember this, because so often what I experience in justice work is people calling for peace. But we have to recall the ways in which peace can often be a call for the absence of tension and a call to ignore injustice. Too often, the call for peace is a call to eliminate tension and to just leave things as they are. And so I would have us remember this notion of creative tension, and to have us actually embrace this notion of creative tension as well. Tension is a good thing. And if you feel that tension within your minds along this journey, I hope you feel, Aliyah's nodding profusely, if you feel that tension along this journey, I hope you feel that tension along this journey. Know that that is intentional. Know that that is a good thing. Know that it can be a creative thing. Know that it is, exactly as MLK talks about, something that we need to embrace. It's a moment of growth. He also talks about the ways in which freedom is never voluntarily given. He talks about the ways in which it must be demanded. Those who have power will never just give up their power. And that means that it must be confronted with a kind of counter force. And so I think force is necessary as well. This is what we can take from this letter. Force is incredibly important, but what we understand from the letter is that this is nonviolent force, but it's still force. And we need to be open about embracing the use of force, because power is never voluntarily given up. Consider that as well. And then finally, I want to make this comment. This whole letter was written not to white racists, not to white supremacists. It was written to good white people. It was written to good liberal folks, good progressive folks who were saying, wait, we're going to get there, just, wait. And what MLK is saying is, good white folks, you can't wait. Justice can't wait. And so just know that this is a letter addressed to people, in all honesty, people like us, which is exactly why we need to read it. Martin Luther King these days gets I would say a semi-bad rap for the ways in which he's been kind of incorporated into the mythology of America, such that his sting has been removed. We need to recall that he scared the hell out of people when he was alive. And when you read his words, you can begin to understand why. The sting is still there, and that's why we need to go back and read the words as opposed to relying upon the kind of mythology of MLK. There's a sting to these words. And so I think it's well worth reading and rereading what he has written. In just a few minutes, we get to go to the Lorraine Motel, where we spent these last moments. April 4, 1968. James Earl Ray was in a building across the way, waiting for the moment that King would emerge from this hotel balcony, and he fired that fateful shot. The Lorraine Motel is a powerful place to visit at this point, and it is now the National Civil Rights Museum. It tells the story of the entire civil rights movement, and I think it's a great way for us to kind of pick up or gather the pieces of the story that we've been exploring all along on this journey. I think it's a great place to do that. But know as well that outside there's a protester who thinks that the museum is a way of containing the message of civil rights, containing the message of nonviolent agitation, containing the message of creative tension. It's a way of doing what we call museumification. This is in the past, and it has no application to the present. She also thinks it's a money-making effort, and we need to absorb that criticism. I still think it's worth it to visit the place and to get that story, but I also think it's worth it to absorb that critique and to think through the ways in which the museumification of these ideas, of this movement, may in fact be detrimental to current justice struggles. And so I want you to feel that creative tension as well as you visit this place. It's good to have that creative tension in mind. With that,
Then we went to the Lorraine Motel. The signage on the road was as it appeared in 1968. The front of the motel looks as it did then. Out front are even cars from the era. Inside is a Black History Museum, the National Civil Rights Museum. Figures from the ships with kidnapped men made into slaves. A drawing during the slave era. Ida Wells' classic brochure on lynching. A street scene, perhaps from the 30s. New York's Adam Clayton Powell. Figures from an effort to integrate a Southern lunch counter, complete with bully boys in the rear. A jail cell where many civil rights workers spent time. A Freedom Rider bus set on fire. Stokely Carmichael, an important civil rights and Black Power leader. The bridge at Selma in a magazine cover the week of the beatings. A scale model of the bridge. A sign worn in King's final protest. They point to the location of the shooter who killed King. Outside the Lorraine. Next, a protest in New Haven, Connecticut, outside and inside a Wells Fargo bank. Wells Fargo is a major investor in the so-called Dakota pipeline.
Please support something cleaner, energy that is greener. It's simple to do, we're saying to you, Fargo, stop supporting dirty oil.
I don't know, maybe everybody here knows this, but on December 4th, the Army Corps of Engineers declined to approve the last easement that Energy Transfer Partners needed to put the pipeline under Lake Oahe, which is a dammed up section of the Missouri River. So some people thought that was the end of it, but that's not the end of it. So the indigenous leadership out in Standing Rock and the other folks who have been out there for the last several months have asked people around the world to keep the pressure on the banks that are funding the pipeline.
Mr. Schuler,
The scandals emanating from, or at least tolerated by, your bank's leadership have only multiplied since we last visited you in October. We're here today to remind you of another Wells Fargo scandal. The bank is a major investor in the Dakota Access Pipeline, being built by Energy Transfer Partners at the edge of the Standing Rock Sioux Reservation and on their historic territory in North and South Dakota. The tribe is leading a global campaign to stop the pipeline, which threatens their water source, the Missouri.
Come on, Wells Fargo, come be responsible, respect treaty rights. Why don't you bankers finance cleaner energy? You could invest in solar, you should invest in solar, you must invest in solar and divest from oil. Woo! Woo! Thank you.
Now, for some reason, sometimes our show is accused of being a downer. It is true, we deal with very, very serious subjects. But today, in the holiday spirit, we're going to show you a lot of light. There's a neighborhood in Brooklyn, New York, where homeowners go bonkers every year at this time, filling their homes, covering their homes with light bulbs. We'll close the show with a short visit to Dyker Heights, Brooklyn. That's our program for today. 2016 is coming to an end. May you have a great year in 2017, and may you take part in the struggle. This is Stanley Heller.